All right, folks, if you thought the Republican clown show in Congress was bad enough already, wait till you hear this. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio has officially thrown his hat into the ring to replace Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, we have several clips to play, but yeah, this news indicates that the GOP is not a party of introspection. They have no interest in, getting their act together and responsibly governing and delivering material results for the American people. But before we dive into it, I want to play the first clip, which is back on October 3rd, that just right after Kevin McCarthy was ejected from his role as Speaker of the House. This is what Jim Jordan had to say immediately after.
How disappointed are you with what happened here and Speaker McCarthy?
I thought it was unfair to Kevin. Kevin, I think, has done a fine job, and he and I came in together. He's a good man, and he didn't deserve this, in my judgment.
Will you run for Speaker?
That's a decision for the conference.
So are you open to it?
Guys, it's a decision for the conference. I don't know if I'm open to it or not. I'm just so distraught. Well, apparently the conference became open to it rather quickly because less than 48 hours later, this is what Jim Jordan had to say.
Congressman, great to see you. You were on the fence the night of the ouster. What changed your mind to say, I want to be Speaker?
You need someone who can unite the conference, and I think just as importantly, unite the conservative and Republican movement across this country. That's what I think I can do. That's why I'm running for the job. I like the job I had. Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, chairman of the Select Committee on the Weaponization of Government, doing the work there. But I do think we have to have someone who can bring our team together. I think I'm best equipped to do that. The 8 people who voted in a way that I disagreed with, we got to bring them into the fold. I think I'm best equipped to do that so that we can then go do the things we told the American people we would do for them.
All right, some interesting answers there. So Jim Jordan's like, listen, I think I'm the best person positioned to unite the conference, not unite the country, not even unite the full constituency, just Republicans and conservatives, because, of course, Republicans apparently don't have to operate under the same standard and obligation that Democrats do, which is serve everybody. Republicans apparently only have to serve other Republicans or their own specific interests. So he talks about that. He talks about doing work, and more on that later. And then he says, we got to produce results for the American people. We got to do for them the things they want us to do, the things that we told them we would do for them. And so with that in mind, I want to draw your attention to the letter that he wrote. A specific sentence to reaffirm that. He says, the Republican majority must continue to address the issues that matter to the American people. That's what Jim Jordan said in his official letter asking Republicans to support him. And let's also be clear. Jim Jordan does make a point when he says that the 8 Republicans who voted to oust McCarthy, that they've got to bring them back into the fold. If they want to do things on a strictly partisan basis, that is true. And it is also true that Jim Jordan, has a close relationship with the likes of Matt Gaetz and Nancy Mace and all the others who voted to oust McCarthy because, of course, Jim Jordan is even less serious a legislator than Kevin McCarthy ever was. So there is some truth to what he said. But in terms of doing work for the American people, does he mean showing up on Fox News to spin propaganda? Fox News weekday appearances by House Speaker candidates 2017 to 2023, Jim Jordan has twice as many Fox News appearances compared to Steve Scalise, who is Kevin McCarthy's number 2, who has also thrown his hat in the ring for the speakership. So when it comes to working to get on Fox News, Jim Jordan is basically without peer. But what about actually producing results? What about legislating, which is what he's supposed to be? He is a legislator in the legislature. He's a congressman. He's supposed to legislate. Well, study after study has indicated from the University of Virginia and University of Vanderbilt that actually Jim Jordan is perhaps the least effective legislator in Congress. University study deems Jim Jordan ineffective at passing legislation. It's true. And it's among consistent iterations of Congress. In terms of sponsoring bills, in terms of getting them passed, he is awful. He is atrocious. This study was reaffirmed, for the last iteration of Congress, that ended in January this year. His status as the least effective legislator was retained. He has done it again and again and again. As a matter of fact, GovTrack.us breaks it down even further. This was in the last Congress. He introduced the fewest bills compared to the Ohio delegates. He held the most committee positions, so he definitely likes to talk a lot, but in terms of legislating, the fewest. Co-sponsored the fewest bills. got bipartisan co-sponsors on the fewest bills, got the 19th fewest co-sponsors compared to all representatives, joined bipartisan bills the 22nd least often compared to House Republicans, 0 bills that became law. I mean, just one thing after another. Jim Jordan is not an effective lawmaker. He's not an effective legislator. Now, what he is good at, again, is showing up on Fox News and being a propagandist and culture war figure. So if you like someone to run their mouth as a propagandist, he's very good. But I don't know why, he could make much more money and be much more effective at that job if he went to work for Fox News. He'd be really good at working for Fox News. Trey Gowdy, who was a Republican congressman, went to work for Fox News after he left Congress. Jim Jordan would be really good at that. Instead, he's actually being paid by the taxpayers to pass meaningful legislation, and he's not doing it. And what's interesting is, now I want to turn your focus to how the American people view Congress and the role, the outsized role that somebody like Jim Jordan plays in this. So this is a recent Pew Research poll. The favorability, or the unfavorability of Congress under Republican leadership in particular is really bad. 72% disapproval rating of Congress. That's really, really bad. Then you look at a recent poll. This was done after Kevin McCarthy was kicked out of his speakership. More Americans have positive views of congressional Democrats than of congressional Republicans. An 8 percentage point margin, 41% to 33%. That's a formidable gap there, even though Republicans are in charge, right? So you would think that they would have the ability to get their way if they really wanted to get their act together. And yet the party that's relatively powerless in the minority, Democrats, they're viewed more favorably, much more favorably than the Republicans. And then he talks about doing the work for the American people, but nearly 3/4 of Americans think that Republican priorities, congressional priorities, are wrong. They disagree with them. The American people don't think that congressional Republicans are even attempting to work for the things that the American people want. Jim Jordan talks about all the work he's done. Right now, he's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, which is perhaps the second most important, certainly in the top 3, with House Oversight and House Ways and Means. The House Judiciary is one of the most powerful and influential committees in the House of Representatives. And what's he doing with that committee? Well, he's been investigating for the past 9 months President Biden's private citizen son, Hunter. Republicans in Congress and the Senate have investigated Hunter Biden multiple times, as we've discussed in previous videos. Even though he's been a private citizen, he's never wielded government power. They don't care about investigating somebody like Jared Kushner, who did wield state power as a member of the Trump administration, right? Who deserves much more scrutiny than a private citizen. No, they don't care about that. They want to keep investigating again and again and again and again and again, as many times as it takes, the president's private citizen son. That's what they're using taxpayer dollars to do. And then, of course, the impeachment hearing, which, as Republican witnesses have established, is not predicated on any evidence. There is no evidence which justifies an impeachment, and yet they're pursuing it anyway. He's also the chair of the House Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. Very long title, but they're more interested in litigating Elon Musk's Twitter files. Like, that's all it's basically a book club reading for the Twitter files. So my point is this. The fact that Jim Jordan feels comfortable to run, and by the way, on paper, Scalise has the advantage because he was McCarthy's number 2. He's certainly a more serious legislator and administrator than Jim Jordan. That's not saying much, but Jim Jordan's chances of becoming speaker, I would say, are disproportionately high given his actual resume. He should have zero chance whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the only votes he should get would be the 8 who wanted to kick McCarthy out, because they kicked McCarthy out because they wanted somebody like Jim Jordan. So he should only get 8 votes from the Republican conference. He may very well get the speakership compared to Scalise. But that's such a profound indictment of the state of the Republican Party. So for those of you out there wondering, maybe this would finally get through, given their disapproval rating, given the chaos, given the disunity, that perhaps the Republican Party would take a minute, breathe deeply, reprioritize, and reboot? Obviously not. So we'll see what happens from here, but it's entirely possible that Jim Jordan at one point in the near future will get the House Speaker gavel.